Attracted by the promise of tasty food and reconnecting with old friends, and propelled by the hypnotizing and cyclical rhythm of seasonal tradition, people arrive on the church picnic grounds and allow themselves to be drawn into the lively circulation of bodies by the enveloping smells of simmering fricassee, sizzling hamburgers, and wafting charcoal smoke. This is an absorbing and happily chaotic interpersonal exchange, and in its embrace, folks comfortably talk and eat together, reaffirming old relationships and building new ones as they pass on pieces of oral history or esoteric knowledge with improvisational skill. Representing a many-faceted group effort to come together over wholesome and delicious food, the church picnic tradition and its treasured jewel, Fricassee soup, hold a very special place in the life of the community in and around Vincennes, a small city on the Indiana bank of the Wabash River. These lively community events, held by certain churches in and around Vincennes proper, are characterized by fellowship and old-fashioned foods, the most distinctive of which is fricassee, a traditional soup made of chicken, pork, vegetables, and seasonings cooked together in a 30-gallon cast-iron kettle for between 5 and 12 hours. Fricassee is a well-known delicacy in and around Vincennes, but people without a connection to this area may have little to no idea what the local dish looks like, tastes like, or encompasses, making the community's own descriptions not only useful but essential for helping outsiders understand this tradition. To begin, resident Elena Charlton reports that it is a chicken-based vegetable soup that's ground up. That's probably the easiest definition. It has some beef, it has some bacon in it, but its base is a ground-up chicken vegetable soup. Resident Bernice Schenk, from a different church than Elena, echoes this message. Fricassee is a big pot of vegetable soup. It's cooked outdoors and has a little bit more in it than just vegetables. It has chicken, beef, and pork. It's a vegetable soup that's done with a lot of meat in it. That's really all it is. But it has its own taste. The most common, though not the only context for serving fricassee soup today, the Vincennes Church Picnic is a festival event held in the mid to late summer or fall, and individual churches tend to hold their annual picnic at about the same time each year. Not every church in Vincennes hosts a picnic, and some that do host picnics do not make fricassee, but the churches that continue to host picnics with fricassee all have their own special and often secret recipes for the local dish. Notwithstanding natural variation, picnics in this community tend to include certain typical features revolving around 3 primary themes: the creation and collective consumption of specific traditional foods, the fundraising nature of these lively social gatherings which generate money for the church budget, and the active engagement in fellowship among picnic volunteers and participants, some but not all of whom are also congregants. While historical research shows that what was once a more common tradition has diminished some in the last 100 years, 3 devoted churches continue practicing the tradition of church picnics with fricassee soup into the present: St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church, Indiana Presbyterian Church, and St. Peter Lutheran Church. Sometime after the settlement of Vincennes was established in 1732 by French military forces, a modest log church was built by Jesuit priests to host the Catholic parish of St. Francis Xavier, whose official records date back to April 21st, 1749. Following the American Revolution, the demographic and spatial expansion of the community from American resettlement and predominantly German immigration caused a proliferation of ethnically based and/or location-specific Catholic churches. Aside from the ethnically French St. Francis Xavier Parish, the following parishes were established to serve the community in and around Vincennes: St. Thomas the Apostle for French, German, and Anglo farmers south of town in 1843, St. John the Baptist Church for German Catholics in town in 1847, and Sacred Heart for industrial workers, many of whom were ethnically Irish, on the north side of town in 1900. These 4 parishes, along with another, St. Vincent Rectory on the southeast outskirts of town, consolidated in 2016 under the name of the oldest, St. Francis Xavier, to resolve the shortage of priests all local parishes were experiencing. The resulting consolidated Catholic community hails from all parts of town and includes folks of all local ethnicities. The leader of the new St. Francis's Fricassee soup since the consolidation, Mike Yoakum attributes the recipe he uses to his father, Alice Yoakum, who developed it in concert with a friend when the two of them took over the St. John the Baptist Church Fricassee in the 1950s. Mike uses paper documents to organize the proportions of ingredients and the sequence of steps, and during the nearly 12-hour period before the soup is ready to simply stew, he can frequently be seen poring over these sheets before stowing them safely away. Watching and managing every step of the process, often including staying overnight with the soup to scrape the sides of the kettles and monitor the stirring mechanisms, Mike is a humble and effective leader. During the expansion of Vincennes that followed the American Revolution, and in response to the newly arrived Americans' desire for spiritual guidance in the absence of the Protestant churches they had left behind further east, many local Protestant churches were founded in the early 19th century as well, the earliest of which was Indiana Presbyterian in 1806. Gail Hess has been enjoying fricassee soup all her life, and for the last 10 years or so, she has been responsible for preparing the special blend of spices that distinguishes Indiana Presbyterian's soup, using a recipe that has been passed down in her family for at least 3 generations. In addition to preparing the nearly proprietary spice bag, Gail helps with the picnic and fricassee by donating and preparing ingredients and baked goods, helping make fresh lemonade and tea, and filling in other gaps, proving her dedication year after year. Founded to serve the German Lutheran farmers who lived to the south of Vincennes proper, for whom the weekly trek to St. John's Lutheran downtown was onerously far, St. Peter Lutheran Church was officially started in 1869, when Pastor Sewell of St. John's began occasionally traveling south of town to serve as the secretary for its earliest meetings held in a member's home. Bernice Schenk is the daughter of a German farming family that settled in the rural county outside Vincennes around the time St. Peter's was founded, and her position as the leader of St. Peter's Fricassee is the culmination of a nearly 70-year career helping make the soup. Equal parts heart, rational planning, and rigid discipline, Bernice is a leader who does not shrink from dirty, menial tasks and who works to keep morale high as volunteers confront and push through hours of hard work preparing the fricassee and the church picnic. Making fricassee soup and hosting church picnics are extremely time-consuming and work-intensive traditional endeavors, and it is not lost on participants that easier alternatives exist in the 21st century. A different, less work-intensive soup than fricassee could be made, and the church family could gather for a potluck or some other low-investment event instead of conjuring the multi-layered smorgasbord of sensory and social delight they call a church picnic. However, there does not seem to be any indication that such a change is coming. When asked why fricassee and the church picnic are worth all the effort they require, Mike Yoakum eloquently responds, "To me, the picnics or things like that are working together of the people. You can go to Mass, service, and everything else, and you see that person in front of you every week. Know nothing about them, very little about them. When you get out there and get to work next to them, drink a beer with them while you're doing this project, you're working together. Hey, come over here and come with us this Sunday morning after church. We're going to be dipping the soup out and everything else." You get to know that person more. You have that intermingling, this camaraderie, is that the word I'm looking for? The fitting together and being more friends and coming together rather than to be separate, snobbish. Considering the same question of why, Gail Hess describes the purpose of the church picnic and fricassee in terms of the cohesion of the group. Everybody gets together, and there's a lot of fellowship that goes on, and it kind of makes it more cohesive, the whole thing. And then we own it. It's our picnic. We worked for that, all of us together. So it just brings people closer. And the kids are there, and they're running around, and they remember for years the parts that they play. And then as adults, they realize how it pulls us all together and keeps us all together. It's like the glue. It cements the whole community together. And the whole idea of the church picnic and the fricassee is that it's multi-generational and everybody works together. The kids stir the soup and peel potatoes, and they learn life skills from other people that they are working with. Getting to the very heart of why St. Peter's continues to hold church picnics and make fricassee soup, Bernice Schenk declares, "We have a good time. It would not work if we didn't have fun. And we all know each other really well. And it's good for the church. It's not going to church, but it makes you, like you say, in the community of the church. And then, of course, you go to church, but that's completely different. This is just a community of the people, and they're working together and having fun." Hailing from 3 separate churches, Mike, Gail, and Bernice each touch on similar themes: working together, camaraderie, fellowship, fun, and community. In these quotes, drawn from much longer individual interviews, each of them argues that the fricassee soup and church picnic traditions function to help each group build community and foster a sense of belonging within itself and within Vincennes as a whole. To reiterate Bernice's apt phrase, these communal traditions and someone's participation in them literally positions that person in the community, a self-evidently recognized member of an engaged collective, working side by side and mutually contributing to a shared project. As Mike points out, the very fact of working together and having fun together is what produces the feeling of camaraderie, of fitting together in the group. In this sense, the fact that these traditions require so much work, more work than any one person could do on their own, is not an obstacle, but rather an ingredient in their success at performing these abstract functions. The working together, with everyone from toddlers to great-grandparents contributing and socializing, is the glue that cements the community together, to use Gail's salient words. Serving such a critical purpose as building community and a sense of belonging among participants, it is no wonder that fricassee soup and church picnics persist today in and around Vincennes against significant odds.